Hello, my good friends. Welcome back. This is episode 3 of exploring Mark Latham's Parental Rights Bill. In this video, we'll be going through what the bill actually says, as well as looking at some of the people and groups that support the bill. In the next video, we'll be looking at all of the criticisms that exist, so it's going to be quite a big one. And in episode 5, we'll be looking at my personal view on education and pedagogy. Quickly before we start, I want to give a shout out to my patrons who are on the screen right now. Thank you so much. If you're interested, link is in the description below. But without further ado, let's get into the Education Legislation Amendment Parental Rights Bill of 2020. Explanatory note. This explanatory note relates to this bill as introduced into Parliament. Overview of the bill. The object of this bill is to amend the Education Act 1990, the Principal Act, as follows. A. To clarify that parents and not schools are primarily responsible for the development and formation of their children in relation to core values such as ethical and moral standards, social and political values, and an understanding of personal identity, including in relation to gender and sexuality. B. To prohibit the teaching of the ideology of gender fluidity to children in schools. C. To provide that schools should not usurp the role of parents, that teaching in relation to core values is to be strictly non-ideological and should not advocate or promote dogmatic or polemical ideology that is inconsistent with the values held by parents of students. D. To ensure that curriculum, syllabuses, and courses of instruction at all levels of schooling do not include the teaching of gender fluidity and recognise parental primacy in relation to core values. E. To ensure that all school staff, including non-teaching staff, counsellors, advisors, and consultants, do not teach gender fluidity and that such staff undertake their duties and engage with students in schools in a way that recognises parental primacy in relation to core values. F. To require schools at the beginning of each academic year to consult with parents about courses of study that will include teaching on core values. G. To allow parents to withdraw students from instruction on core values where parents object to the particular teaching on these matters of parental primacy. H. To require the New South Wales Education Standards Authority to monitor the compliance by government schools with the requirements to not teach gender fluidity and to recognise parental primacy in relation to core values. I. To provide for a review after 2 years of the compliance of schools with these requirements and for that review to be tabled in both houses of the New South Wales Parliament. The bill also amends the Education Standards Authority Act of 2013 to provide that a function of the New South Wales Education Standards Authority includes a requirement to ensure that the school curriculum and teaching standards are developed and applied in a way which does not teach gender fluidity and which recognises the primacy of parents in relation to core values. The bill also amends the Teacher Accreditation Act 2004 No. 65 to require that all approved teacher education courses recognise the primacy of parents in relation to core values and do not teach gender fluidity, and ensure that it is a condition of the accreditation of teachers and other staff that they recognise the primacy of parents in relation to core values and that they do not teach gender fluidity. So that's all a little bit silly. It is the rantings and ravings of a right-wing culture warrior. As we looked at in the first couple of episodes, Mark Latham's wonderful arc into just conspiracy theory, cultural Marxist, blah, blah, blah. I mean, as we saw when he and Alan Jones looked through those books and just were so absolutely disgusted and outraged that kids are being taught that, it's okay to like different colours or different things. It is the epitome of the old man yells at cloud, or the people being scared of things they don't understand. We're now going to have a look at a couple of sources that speak positively about the bill. The first is Catholic Weekly, and while it doesn't specifically come out in support of it, you can identify through the way that they have reported it by who they've included to comment on it and who they've left out, that they are presenting it in a positive manner. And we can see that from the very start, from the title that they've decided to use, Parental Rights Back It is a right for my kids never to have to hear about any other things. New South Wales Legislative Council Committee report backs parental rights in draft Latham gender legislation. Parents will have a legal right to withdraw their children from classes inconsistent with their core beliefs and values under recommendations made by a New South Wales Upper House Parliamentary Committee. In a report published on 6th of September, the cross-party committee supported important recommendations for supporting the rights of parents in educating their children. The report from the Inquiry into the Education Legislation Amendment Parental Rights Bill of 2020 also recommended preventing schools from encouraging transgenderism among students without the knowledge of their parents or guardians. Its 9 recommendations include establishing in law the primacy of parents in relation to the education of their children in moral and ethical standards, political and social values, and matters of personal well-being and identity, including gender and sexuality. Conscientious objections by parents beyond religious grounds should be broadened to cover the teaching of political or ideological material in a dogmatic way. Schools should consult with parents at the beginning of each school year and provide information on what will be taught in classrooms, including publishing on school websites a list of course outlines, textbooks, and learning materials. In particular, the bill seeks to prohibit the promotion of gender fluidity in schools while not affecting the rights of transgender students to support and well-being in schools. It recommended that schools not regard or refer to a student as transgender without advice from the student's medical experts, parents, or guardians, and that policies be introduced to prevent high school students competing in sports outside of their biological gender in recognition of the physical strength advantages teenage boys develop over girls. The report also said that transgender students must be treated with care, compassion, dignity, and inclusion, free from discrimination, harassment, vilification, and violence. Transgender students should be permitted to use the school uniform of their choice and be offered a third choice for bathroom facilities and changing room use, it added. Earlier this year, Archbishop Anthony Fisher OP, chair of the Bishops' Commission for Catholic Education, said that by ensuring parents are kept informed about what their children will be taught regarding matters of morality, the bill shows respect for the role of parents as primary educators of their children. It troubles me that there would be resistance in some quarters to a law that requires schools to be upfront and transparent with parents about what children are being taught in the classroom, the Archbishop said. Schools should partner with parents for the flourishing of children, not hide things from them. Other supporters of the bill include Catholic Schools New South Wales, the Maronite Eparchy of Australia and Oceania, the Council of Catholic School Parents New South Wales ACT, and the Catholic Diocese of Parramatta. Chair of the committee and author of the bill, Mark Latham, said that the recommended reforms are in line with the publicly stated views of New South Wales Education Minister Sarah Mitchell, but that her words must be supported by action. The New South Wales Education Act 1990 has several references to parents, but over time, these have proven to be tokenistic. After 3 decades, it is timely to update this statute with a stronger, more comprehensive expression of parental rights. If the minister is to turn her rhetoric into results, an improved legislative framework is necessary. Giving Mark Latham the last word there, aren't they just so lovely? And now we're going to move from that relatively unbiased piece of reporting, even though it clearly had perspective and it didn't include any dissenting voices. We're going to move from that to an article from The Spectator, which is just a standard bearer for for fair and balanced journalism. Bishop Long, just plain wrong. My God, I only just realized it's written by Mark Latham. All right, well, let's see what Mark Latham has to say about Mark Latham's bill. When looking at the political world of woke, we can't discount the foolishness of religious clerics who regard themselves as progressive. They have abandoned the pages of the Bible to embrace virtue signaling and the self-serving impression that by supporting new left-wing causes, this somehow makes them compassionate. I am writing this from Newcastle, where the progressive Anglican Bishop Peter Stewart appeared at a parliamentary hearing last year to oppose my religious freedom bill. That's right, he caved into the wild propaganda of the LGBTIQ lobby to oppose provisions in the New South Wales Anti-Discrimination Act stopping discrimination against people on the grounds of their religious faith. He advocated against the interests of his own flock. The LGBTIQ activists look at Stewart as what Lenin famously described as a useful idiot. He does their work for them, preserving human rights for gays and transgenders, but nobody else. That's the real bigotry here. Now another foolish, misguided cleric has emerged. Catholic Bishop Vincent Long Van Nguyen of Parramatta. Parents in the Catholic schools of the Parramatta Diocese have been voting with their feet. The New Age teaching philosophies at Parramatta, introduced by a wacky old lefty, Greg Whitby, have driven down academic results and parents have taken their children out of the schools. The Parramatta Diocese's share of local school enrolments has collapsed. Whitby believes in the teaching of gender fluidity, telling little boys and girls that they have been born in the wrong body with the wrong gender. Why would Catholic parents pay school fees for this form of tuition? Why would they allow their children to be sexualized well beyond their years in the privacy of classrooms, often without parental knowledge and consent? Thankfully, many Catholic parents have stood up for their rights and left Whitby's schools. Just as a quick aside, I want to point out this weird fascination that the right seems to have with looking at gender and immediately jumping to thinking it is sexual. Now, I don't know whether this is because their minds are warped or it's just some weird understanding of what gender is or what people are talking about, but it's just fucking weird, man. If you want gender manipulation and the sexualization of little kids, oh, there you go. At least New South Wales government schools will do it for free. In practice, the only safe havens for children and parents trying to avoid transgender ideology are Christian and Islamic colleges and a shrinking number of Anglican and Catholic schools. Bishop Long of Parramatta has sent a letter to his parishioners with a remarkable statement that, on matters of gender diversity, at times the teachers are the only people these children might trust in helping them in these sensitive matters. It's a slap in the face for the parents who send their children to Parramatta's Catholic schools. These parents don't have a 6-week holiday at the end of the year or weekends and public holidays off from their parenting responsibilities. Fuck you. They are always there with love, support, and the best interests of their children in mind. In a full school year, students only spend 13% of their time at school. The remainder is with family and friends. There are some fine teachers in the education system, but ultimately, they are strangers in our lives. They come and go from classrooms and schools, while parents lovingly nurture and guide their children from birth to adulthood over decades without a break. Mark, you know that some teachers, a lot of teachers actually, are also parents? You fucking condescending prick. Sorry, I was going to try and not to swear in this video. Then I have to read words that Mark Latham writes. It's really his fault if you think about it. Bishop Long, perhaps inadvertently, has driven a wedge between parents and their children by promoting the nonsensical idea that teachers can be more important, more trusted than parents in the raising of children. Long has also fallen for the gay lobby propaganda that my parental rights bill will deny the existence of transgender children in schools. It does no such thing. It gives those children exactly the same rights they have now for a good education and pastoral care. The bill is directed at the teaching of gender fluidity, to stop anyone inside a school from saying to a student, "You have some worries and anxiety. Have you ever thought you were born into the wrong body?" This is just fanfic of what he hopes is happening. The bill prohibits the teaching of gender as a social construct. The insidious postmodernist theory that the only reason a 6-year-old girl feels female is that her parents dressed her in pink and gave her a Barbie doll to play with. Wow, there's so much there to unpack, Mark, but I'm afraid our time is up for this week. Under existing New South Wales education rules, the Safe Schools program and Gaby Baby movie are banned, and the Education Minister, Sarah Mitchell, has said repeatedly that gender fluidity is not part of the school curriculum. The years 11 to 12 biology textbook teaches gender solely as a biological phenomenon, not a social construct. We are constantly told to follow the science, follow the science. He has been watching Fox News, hasn't he? This is all they fucking complain about. There it is, unmistakably in a textbook. The problem... So if there's a textbook that says something differently, is that also there unmistakably in a textbook? That's a strange standard to set, Mark. But, I mean, you're an idiot, so that's why. The problem has been leftists inside the system ignoring these rules and pushing transgender ideology upon students. They've openly defied the policies of the New South Wales government, such as the New South Wales Teachers Union instructing its members to work gender fluidity lessons into English, maths, library, and PD/HPE classes. The Teachers Fed has even suggested that students give up a full day of schoolwork to visit the Sydney Aquarium, not to study marine biology, but to look at two, supposedly gay, male penguins hatching an egg. At one level, it's funny, but it's also a sign of sick people determined to put their personal, ideological obsessions ahead of the welfare of children. That's the worry. That's what we need to guard against. Gay penguins! Mark! You absolute duffer. These ideologues are also inside the New South Wales Education Department, such as the activists who used last year's Wear It Purple Day, 28th of August, as a reason for distributing dozens of gender fluidity guides, including instruction on breast binding and penis tucking, to 70,000 government school teachers. Oh, not students. This is the reason for my bill, to reassert the rights of parents and to protect our children from the abuse of ideologues in schools and from teachers getting taught things in handouts. True, I'm not a Christian, but I've read the Bible closely enough to know that the eternal message of Jesus Christ is to protect the vulnerable from those who would prey upon them. That's what my bill does. Yeah, I can only imagine that if Jesus were alive right now and in Australia for some reason and not, on his way here, locked in detention for 10 years at a cost of hundreds of millions of dollars to the taxpayer, I truly imagine that he would be standing hand in hand, not like holding hands, like he's not gay. Mark is not gay. So he'd be standing shoulder to shoulder with Mark up there saying, nah. So some really great editorial standards that The Spectator has. Now that we've looked through the entire bill as well as some of the positive press, we're going to leave it there. The next episode is going to look at the considerable amount of criticism from serious professional bodies and looking at the very real, tangible harm that this could cause. So until next time, What? Pardon? Yeah, of course you're allowed to like and subscribe. You didn't need to ask me that, you silly goose. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you are after some other Lefty content from Australian or New Zealand creators, check out the description. I have a huge list there. I am sure you will find something that you will like. I'll see you next time.